Good evening, everyone. Emergency meeting that has been rescheduled to tonight at 5:00 p.m. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Bears.
Present.
Council Falco.
Present.
Vice President Knight.
Present.
Council Marks.
Present.
Council Morell.
Present.
Council Scarpelli.
Present.
President Caraviallo.
Present, all attendants. Purpose of this meeting this evening is to discuss allegations of illegal and personal nature due to something received by the council.
Ricky, should that door be closed then?
I'm sorry?
Should this door be closed or?
We'll meet in.
Yeah, we're gonna meet in the other
We'll
room.
be in 207. The city council has chosen to enter an executive session for this discussion. The city council has also invited City Solicitor Kimberly Scanlon to attend this meeting. So do I have a motion?
Motion for approval, Mr. President.
Yes. Yes.
Is the mic on, Mr. President?
No. Pat, can you put?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Thank you. Like I was saying, there were 10 specific purposes. The first and perhaps the most applicable is to discuss the reputation, character, physical condition, mental health of an individual, or to discuss discipline of dismissal of or complaints or charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff, or individual. That particular purpose invokes individual rights. And I want to be mindful of everyone's individual rights.
Yes.
So the individuals to be discussed in executive session have to be notified by the public body at least 48 hours in advance. They have the right to be present. They have the right to counsel or a representative present. They may also choose to have an open meeting, and that choice will take precedence over the public body's option to go into executive session. So simply put, what the council can discuss during a meeting, it's governed by open meeting laws.
Yes.
So I just wanted to
So
reiterate that.
I understand what can be, I think we all
Thank
understand
you.
what can be said and can't be said in the open meeting. In the executive session.
Right. So just to remind the council that there's individual rights.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Thank
On
you.
that point, Mr. President?
So, Vice President Knight.
So would it be the solicitor's recommendation to go into executive session at this point in time? Or would it be your recommendation to follow some sort of notification process? I notice that, there's 9 other reasons why we could go in, and maybe she could shed some light on whether or not this would fall into one of those other buckets of appropriate authority.
Well, in my opinion, none of the other reasons would apply here. And that particular purpose does trigger individual rights. So I want to make sure that the council follows individual rights. I know you will.
Yeah.
So I just want to point that out.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Motion for approval, Mr.
So
President.
on the motion by Council Marks, seconded by
Mr. President,
Council Bears.
Solicitor, thanks for being here.
You're welcome.
If we were to enter executive session per that, category, would it automatically invoke individual rights no matter what we discuss, or would it depend on what we discuss in the meeting?
Yeah, so entering into executive session, it invokes a 48-hour notice requirement to the individuals to be discussed 48 hours prior to the actual meeting taking place.
Okay.
Yeah. On the motion by Council Marks, seconded by.
So in essence, then, what we're doing is tonight, we're going to vote to go into executive session. We have to wait 48 hours before we do that because of the individual rights?
Yes.
We're not discussing any names, right? We're having this meeting to sit down and talk to our city solicitor.
I will,
Right,
I
isn't that-
will warn all councilors that
Right.
no individuals will be named
Right.
or positions or any heads of any departments or anything like that. I suggest that we listen to the city's solicitor first before any questions are asked.
Mr.
And
President?
take her advice.
But it's my understanding that because of the reason we would be using to go into this executive session, it's triggering that. So by using that reason, it already triggers that 40-hour notice. So our options.
Right, so you wouldn't be able to enter into an executive session under this purpose without the notification to the individual rights that are about to be discussed.
Right.
If that hasn't occurred, then
That's right.
you wouldn't be able to use that purpose to go into an executive session this
it's
evening.
to,
Well, we could have a regular meeting.
Yeah, like I say,
I don't understand why the city council can never meet in executive session,
Yeah.
but the school committee
No,
every other
yeah.
week can, Mr.
Yeah,
President. It makes zero sense to me, and why
there
we
was-
can't
there was,
discuss an
there was,
executive session
there was
with
no
our
intent-
attorney an issue, Mr. President, which
There was-
makes zero sense to me too, and maybe cries out for the fact that this council needs to have a line item in the budget to have representation, Mr. President, for exact issues like we're experiencing right now,
So,
Mr. President.
Again, as I've said, nothing, no names will be mentioned or any that we listen to.
Mr. President, I move the question.
Yes.
I move the question.
So on, yes,
Yes.
on the motion by Counsel Marks, seconded by
Second.
Counsel Scott Pelley. All those in favor?
Aye.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Clerk, please call the roll. Yes. Counsel Falco.
To executive session, for the reason that was stated earlier, we would have to give the people that are going to be discussed.
Individuals to be
individuals 48 hours notice, which means that the earliest we could go into executive session is Friday? Thursday, Friday.
At 5:05,
Friday at
48 hours in
5:10.
advance.
Mr. Clerk, please call
I
the
know
roll.
it's wildly unpopular. I just want to make sure that this council is
Sometimes-
following
sometimes
individual
we have to
rights in
make-
the open meeting law.
Sometimes we have to make unpopular decisions.
Indeed.
So-
Mr.
so
Clerk,
this-
please
so-
continue. Please call the roll.
I mean, if the recommendation is that we go into executive session, but that executive session happens, I want to be in compliance with the law, and I don't want to turn this into an issue where there's an open meeting law complaint filed against the council when the nature and substance of the materials that the council received were so significant and important. I don't want the underlying issue as to why we're trying to meet to be, taken away from and to be distracted by an open meeting law complaint that may or may not be sufficient. I know we've had our fair share of frivolous complaints in the past, but, where it involves employee rights, I think we need to err on the side of caution. And if that's the case, that's the case. But, based on the fact that we did receive materials that were before us, can the solicitor maybe provide us with a little bit of guidance as to how we can discuss this information while still protecting the individual rights of the subjects of the complaint? I mean, is there a way we can even talk about it without invoking individual rights? Or?
My suggestion would be to follow open meeting law guidelines. If you want to discuss this in executive session, or even if you don't, and you want to discuss this in open session, you need to give notification to the individuals that are going to be discussed. They have the right to counsel or a representative present. They have the right to have 48 hours advance notice of the meeting. This is all in accordance with the open meeting law.
So if the council elected to go into executive session for this purpose, how would the notification process take place? Would you be responsible for doing the notification? Would the city clerk be responsible for handling the notification?
The clerk.
The city clerk?
Can I ask a question?
Mr. Clerk.
So there is an agenda posted for a special council meeting on Saturday morning at 8:30. I have posted it in compliance with the open meeting law already. If I am to, would an email, would an attachment of that email to any parties impacted serve as notice, or would it have to be a separate agenda, a new agenda? If I sent that email to the parties who were who may be discussed and said that you are invited and I'm providing this as formal notice, would that be sufficient, or would I need a new agenda?
I think it would be fine. I'll look into it more, but I'm
Okay.
glad you mentioned that because I'm not going to be here on Saturday morning.
Mr. President,
Scott Pelley.
I don't know how everybody else feels, but I think that with what we're hearing and what we received and aligned with budget concerns, one glaring is what Council Marks just brought up, that do we continue with the budget considering what jumps to the top of my list now is legal representation for the council. Nothing against the city solicitor. I honor and respect her opinion, but the truth of the matter is she still works for, she doesn't work for this department. She doesn't work for the council. So, because I trust what she's saying, but I also, I'm questioning the validity of the other reasons to me. Personnel, legal, it just, we're in a timeline with the budget, but I don't know if I got to think about whether I want to move forward with this budget. So that's what I'm saying. So if we can't meet Saturday with the city solicitor with all this information and without violating any open meeting laws, and this pushes the city business to a point where,
The Tuesday is the last regular meeting of the council. And the budget must be passed or denied by then.
So, Mr. President, if I could, then I was under the impression, like when we had our emergency meeting on Saturday, that meeting was for the sole purpose of discussing scheduling. And we had a meeting, we discussed potential scheduling, which led to tonight.
That's correct.
I was under the impression tonight we were going to get some guidance from the city solicitor about potential next steps.
And I'm
And
on
that's
the,
all we were going to
and I'm
discuss,
on the same page that you are.
potential next steps. Now, knowing what we hear tonight, Mr. President, I don't feel comfortable being in a room with other parties, Mr. President, without having representation, legal representation on behalf of the council. So I would ask that whatever meeting we do have, that we invite legal counsel, outside legal counsel, to the meeting to represent the Medford City Council, Mr. President, because I'm sure other parties and entities probably have their own legal counsel. And that is, so I was hoping tonight we would get that, go ahead from the city solicitor to go ahead to whatever we feel comfortable with.
And I think that was the intent of the
Without
meeting.
discussing allegations, without discussing names, without violating anyone's rights, Mr. President, because this council is not in the business of violating rights. But we are in the business, Mr. President, when we're presented with allegations, to make sure we take them seriously. And I think that's what we're trying to do as a council.
that's
But-
what I thought,
But
even
if
if it
if
wasn't.
our hands are tied that we can't meet without, I don't understand why a body, a legislative body that's elected by the people can't meet, and I understand the open meeting law, believe me, can't meet to discuss with our attorney, Mr. President, next steps that the council will take. I don't understand that. And I still can't fathom why we can't do that, so.
Mr. President,
Vice President Knight.
I don't think that the solicitor is saying we can't meet. I think what the solicitor is saying is that we can meet, we just have to wait 48 hours to notify the individual.
So respectfully, when did we ask for this meeting?
Saturday.
No, when did we ask? We asked Saturday for this meeting.
Am I correct, Mr. Clerk?
When
Saturday?
when did we
It
ask?
was scheduled for Tuesday and then rescheduled for
Yeah.
today.
Right.
Because the city solicitor couldn't
So
make
it's
it yesterday.
been, with all due respect, 2 to 3 days, and now we're hearing that we really shouldn't be meeting. Right? Am I missing
A
something?
point of information, if I can. What is the posting? What was the posting that was sent out
Posting was.
for this meeting? What did we send out? Can you read that back? The reason for the purpose of the meeting?
Purpose of the meeting, the rescheduled, the purpose of the meeting is to discuss allegations of a legal and personnel nature received by the city council.
So what would the notification requirements be if we were to notify? Does that have to be certified mail, certified letter? Does it have to be hand delivered? And what would the process service
No, I
requirement
think
be?
in the past, emails or direct mail correspondence has sufficed.
Mr. President, if I can.
Council Scarpelli.
So if I can, if we were to retire to executive session to discuss the process of concerns of legal or personnel matters without the topic, but just the guidance of what the process is.
But that's what I'm giving you. See, the problem is you cannot enter executive session without a specific purpose.
Right, so I'm not, obviously I'm not an attorney, Kim. So
Council Morell.
I'm not done yet. I'm just trying to figure out, again, if it's just about getting guidance of the legalities of how to proceed, not to discuss what the process is, what the situation is. Am I not making sense? I'm just trying to figure out why we can't move forward
No,
with
I
this.
think what you're asking is whether or not you have the ability to hire outside counsel. Am I correct?
That would have been one of my questions tonight.
I know we have the ability, because we've done it in the past. So I
Right,
know we
but-
have the ability. I was hoping to get guidance as the first step tonight,
Right.
so.
I understand why it would be an OML violation to go into executive session as you're explaining it. I'm just frustrated that we're finding this out right now, as opposed to finding this out like Saturday, when we had the time to invite the people. So that's just where my frustration lies right now, where we could have invited the parties to attend and had this meeting, so that's just where, I absolutely understand what you're saying. I thank you for explaining it, but I'm just kind of frustrated that we're finding it out now as opposed to earlier when we could have planned.
I understand. I do.
Mr. President? So.
I think Council Falco's first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Vice President Knight.
So ultimately, the purpose of us to go into this executive session will be to discuss the complaint that we received and the individuals mentioned into it, right? That's the purpose of the meeting. In order for us to do that, because individuals are mentioned into it, individual rights would kick in. So because of that, we have to give 48 hours notice for us to meet, and we have to notify those individuals that they're going to be discussed and give them the right to attend the meeting.
Correct.
Do we have to give them the right to participate in the meeting?
They have the right to hold it in open session if they so choose.
Hold it in open session if they so choose. Okay, so going forward, right, I think we all want to do something. We all want to have the meeting, right? We have the city solicitor here saying that there's a process that we need to follow, so why don't we just follow the process and get to it? So the earliest we can meet will be Friday. That sound correct?
At 5:20, yeah, 48 hours.
5:20 Friday.
So how do we do that and have legal counsel representing us?
Well, I think the first thing we do would be, we have the meeting to discuss the complaint and the individuals mentioned in it. The city solicitor would be there to provide us with what our obligations
Right.
are now that we are informed of that. And if that means seek legal counsel on the outside, then that's what we'd be taking up the vote on that day, whether or not that's the direction we want to go in.
Right, but there may be other legal counsel there as well. So we won't have any representation, and other parties may have legal counsel. And I don't feel comfortable being in a room without having our own legal counsel.
So then that might be,
Right.
that might be the vote that we have to take that on that Saturday, at that meeting. Right? You know what I mean? What are our obligations now that we have this complaint?
I don't know why we have to have outside parties in a vote for us to have legal counsel. Why do we have to have outside parties? Why can't this be done? Well, Mr. President, can we do it just on the floor today?
If you want to do it on the floor,
Or maybe we can ask the city solicitor. Is that something that we can do just on the floor today, requesting outside legal counsel?
You would need an appropriation to do so, but yes.
Well,
you could
we
request it.
don't make appropriations, so that would be up to the city administration. So, maybe that's the direction. I just don't feel comfortable being here with parties that we're not at liberty to discuss anything right now, and having them have legal counsel and us not having any legal counsel. Because it's going to get to be a very legal process, I assume.
I mean, I think that's what we're looking for.
Yeah,
ultimately, is
I think-
legal
I-
guidance,
you're
and
correct.
that's what the.
That's what I was
end game
hoping
is.
tonight we were going to get, right? I was hoping tonight
Well,
was
I mean, I
that
think we
step.
did. I mean, I'm looking at it as we did get the legal guidance. The legal guidance we got was don't go into executive session because you didn't notify the people because individual rights kicks in. And
Okay, yeah, but that doesn't help us with an attorney, right? That helps us
That
not
just-
violate
that-
open meeting law, but
Right, and guides us with the process to get the meeting so that we can move to that goal of getting the attorney. And we have to go through the process, right?
right, well, I thought we were going through that process.
Mr. President? Mr. President?
Council Falco.
Thank you. So could we, if we wanted to, make a motion to hire outside legal help tonight?
You can make an motion to request an appropriation from the mayor to do so.
And then it would be up to the mayor to give us the appropriation to actually go out and hire.
Correct. Look, what I can tell you is this,
So we would, if I may, and I apologize for interrupting. So we would at least be making some progress towards getting to that point. We would have outside legal help to help us down this road, if we did that, at least did that piece tonight. Waiting for the appropriation, that comes from across the hall, I guess, but, and I'm not sure how long that would take, but it sounds like we could at least go in that direction if the council wanted to, if I'm understanding that correctly.
Right, so here's what I can tell you. I know my opinion's wildly unpopular, but I cannot comment on ongoing personnel matters. What I can tell you is that this is being handled and will be going to an outside third-party investigator, separate and apart from myself, because I understand what everybody's saying. I am part of the administration. I get it. I understand your trepidations, which is exactly why I have been recommending and will continue to recommend that this matter went to an outside third-party investigator.
So you said that the letter that we received over the weekend is being handled by an outside investigator? Is that
That's correct.
what you're saying?
If I may, could you tell us how that process began or how that started?
Sure. A few weeks back, upon receiving a first email request by the mayor, she had asked me to look into third-party outside investigators to start with. I started to gather the information. Sorry, my mouth is really dry. I started to gather the additional information and then narrowed down my options, making sure that it was fair and impartial, someone that nobody knew of, somebody that nobody ever heard of, someone that was separate and apart from the city, obviously, and made a recommendation. I listed down to 2 candidates, and earlier today, the mayor had agreed to the first candidate, which was Attorney Green, I believe, from an outside law firm.
So what's the name?
Attorney Green.
Mr. President,
You're welcome.
Council Marks?
are you able to outline for what purpose this private investigator is being hired?
All of the purposes that,
Are you able to outline that now before us?
unfortunately, I can't. This is out of my
Right.
hands now.
Right, so we don't know what's being investigated. We don't know to what extent, Mr. President. So I think that's why, we have to do our due diligence as well. And there could be multiple ongoing investigations, Mr. President, but I don't feel comfortable with that response, to be quite honest with you, because I'm not sure what the response involves. And were the parties notified about this meeting that was held? Do they have the same rights to show up at City Hall? The 2 department heads, were they notified? Were they
Excuse me,
privy to
Council
this?
Marks? Mr. Viglione, other side, please, with your camera. You know the rules over there. On the other side of the window, please.
Do they fall under the
Thank
same
you.
requirements?
What parties?
The parties that are involved?
Were they notified of, I'm sorry.
Of whatever meeting took place with the city administration regarding the hiring of an investigator where
It wasn't a meeting, though. It was upon my recommendation.
but it had to take place in a meeting, right? It didn't just happen in the hallway, right? Was a meeting called? I
Not
would
really a
assume.
meeting, and more of a request. We never met on the topic per se.
Okay, well, Mr. President, at this point, I think we should proceed as we're going to proceed.
Mr. President,
That would be my recommendation.
Council Bears?
if we were to enter an executive session that was duly noticed, and we were to ask you what our next steps would be, would your answer likely be that you can't comment on ongoing personnel matters?
Yes.
Thank you.
So, Mr. President, if I could, considering our next discussion is regarding the budget, do we have to notify anyone regarding a request, a formal request by the council for legal counsel appropriation? Or can we just, as part of the budget discussion, include that into the budget discussion? Because when we offer motions on the budget, they're not posted in advance, naturally.
Well, this evening at 6 o'clock, with the first thing on the agenda will be the law budget. The law department, because that was scheduled for this evening.
Okay, well, that may be,
So, you can offer that appropriation as a line item, I would assume, going forward. What information?
Legislative budget, or it wouldn't fall under the the legal budget, correct? So it wouldn't matter what the law, what we're doing next. This is a legislative budget.
Unless we create a legal
Line?
line item for council legal representation, which we can. And one doesn't currently exist, and what we were told
We can't do that.
is something that we can do as a council. We have that authority.
No. I'll wait guidance from the floor. You want to continue? Vice President Knight?
Question for the solicitor.
We seem to be in uncharted waters here.
Yeah, certain, one aspect of the complaint would surround a personnel issue. Another aspect of the complaint surrounds financial issue.
Yes.
So the financial issue, I think, is something that certainly warrants investigation. And my request would be through you, what steps do we have or rights do we have as a council to further investigate that matter where it's not a personnel issue? It's an administration and government issue.
Aside from requesting an appropriation to hire outside a third party, that's the only option I see. It's the only thing I can think of.
Well, can we add it to our council budget and the legislation when we do when we do this department on Saturday? If there's no appropriation from the mayor.
There's DLS guidance on this. Let me check it first.
Because I said, we haven't done this department's budget yet, and we could add that on Saturday as a line item.
Right.
Yeah, all departments slow, but I say we haven't done the legislative branch yet. That'll be on Saturday, so I'll assume that we can add that item to our budget and as an appropriation.
No.
Councilor Knight?
When an allegation is raised of financial impropriety and it's brought to the attention of the council, what obligations legally does the council have in terms of action?
Again, outside of hiring a third-party investigator, which would logically be the next step, right?
Right.
Because right now you have complaints.
I mean, we can't not act, right? So when something's been brought to our attention, it's well documented, and the ball's in our court to do something, right? We're either going to be complicit in the information that we've received and do nothing with it, or we're going to look at it, right? So how do we do that? How do we look at it? How do we go about doing that? Ask for this appropriation? We're still not going to be able to have a meet in a private session, right? I mean, it still has to go through an executive session. It still needs to go through that individual rights process.
Yes.
Councilor Falco?
Thank you, Mr. President. If we wanted to, could we just refer to a government agency,
Of course you could.
like right here, right now?
You could, but again, what agency and what are they investigating? Because there has not been an investigation yet.
But couldn't they conduct their own investigation?
I suppose they could.
I mean, I think that's what, if I'm correct, government agencies have divisions that are usually there for that. That's their purpose.
Right.
So when I look at this here, we all have the information that was given to us, that was emailed to us. And so, I mean, I look at, there are, I think, a number of options. Having an independent investigation, which sounds like something like that is already about to begin. That wasn't originated here by the council. I know there's a lot of talk of doing that, it sounds like. But the other option is just moving this right out to a government agency. So, I mean, to me, that seems like it's an option. If I may just finish really quick, because when I look at this here, I feel like we have data, we have information, and I feel in some ways we're complicit by not acting on the data that we received. And I do feel that there is some aggravation that we should have been, not prepared, but there should have been a meeting tonight to discuss all of this. And I understand the open meeting law and whatnot, but I also feel like I do have concerns, ongoing concerns, and I'm trying to be careful how I say this so I don't violate anything, with what's going on in the four walls here. So that's why I'm thinking, if that's an option to outsource this to a government agency, and that's what they do, we should think of that.
But on that point, Mr. President, I think it's, the complainant's right if they want to pursue it through an outside agency, that they can file a complaint there as well. I don't think it's the council's obligation to file a complaint for, you know what I mean? If there's an individual that's mentioned in the complaint, I think, the materials that were before us kind of spoke a little bit about pursuing outside agency investigation. It didn't necessarily indicate that that was the next steps that the individuals were going to take in these complaints. But, I think we're going down, maybe not us, but me, I'm going down a slippery slope with individuals and this and that and the other thing in the complaints. So with that being said, I'm going to rest my case. I certainly would like to convene an executive session to discuss this matter. I certainly feel as though if it takes us having to give a 48-hour notice, then that's what we have to do to go forward and continue with this discussion that we need to have. If that's the process, that's the process. It is what it is. That's the world we live in. So, I'm certainly open to moving forward in that direction. But, I don't know what anybody else feels on this. I don't want to take any action that's going to effectuate and impact individuals' rights here in the community. I'd rather err on the side of caution. These are public employees that do have rights, and, we have to make sure we respect that. So if it just takes 48 hours and a letter of notification, I don't see what harm that causes.
So,
Mr. President.
if we would go there, so we would be able to meet at Friday at this time?
Yep, 48 hours in advance.
So we would have to meet at Friday at 6:00 PM, correct?
Keep in mind that it's going to take me 20 minutes to produce the notice.
Yeah, so clerk has to produce a notice within, Council Bears.
Mr. President, I agree with what my colleagues are saying, that, we've received documentation of a serious nature and that we should have some ability to address it. However, it does seem to me that that's in conflict with the legal role given to this public body under state law. And it sounds to me like if we were to enter executive session to try to discuss next steps, the answers we would receive in that executive session from a Solicitor Scanlon would likely be the same answers we've received here and now. I guess, would you be, if we were to enter executive session duly noticed under Purpose 1, do you expect that you would be able to provide us guidance on legal next steps beyond saying support a third-party investigation or refer it to a legal?
What's that? Yeah, that literally everything I said tonight would remain the same.
And do you feel like there's any additional information you'd be able to provide in executive session that you can't provide here?
No.
So,
Let's go into executive session on Friday.
that's fine.
No.
It just seems to be that at the end of Friday, the result will be the same, which is we can say that we want to support a third-party investigation. We want to hire outside legal counsel, which would require appropriation, which we certainly wouldn't have before next Tuesday. Maybe amazingly we would. I just don't expect that to happen. I just think our shoes are tied, our hands are tied here a little bit, which is difficult, but I just wanted to lay that out because I think we just need to be on the same page that we may enter an executive session Friday evening and leave that session with no more information than we have right now. So we might want to think about how we can act given the information we currently have, given that reality.
Next step, I say we move forward to Friday's executive session at 6:00.
I would.
And invite the proper parties and make sure all of our legal responsibilities are in place, and we move forward and get some understanding. Because from what I was told is that because this council did get something in that nature, is something that we're obligated to follow through on our end, whether the central administration feels that they see something that they want to have their own investigation, that's theirs. But I think that that's our job as city councils. We have to answer to our constituents, and that's why is your motion still on the floor?
Just one question for the city solicitor. Would there be any prohibition for the council to bring on free legal counsel? Like if we found an attorney that wanted to represent us without going through a process of asking for an allocation from the mayor, would there be anything that would preclude us from doing that?
I suppose not. It's a little offensive
So,
to me, but
To find a pro bono attorney, you're saying?
You were just saying that we have the ability
You want
to
attorney?
bring on an attorney, right?
with an appropriation, sure.
Right, but so this is not reflective upon you, it's a reflective upon us bringing someone on. And if the appropriation doesn't come in a timely fashion, then it doesn't suit its purpose. So I would say if we're able to bring on free legal counsel to advise us, right, Mr. President, at the beginning, in particular for this Friday meeting, I don't see any harm in having legal counsel there to represent this council, Mr. President. So,
You're saying there's an attorney that's pro bono that will take on working with the council for this issue to show up on Friday's meeting. Is that acceptable? Is that the question?
more or less.
Council Bears.
I mean, I'm waiting for an answer. I don't know if anybody has an answer. I don't.
Mr. President, should the council elect to hire outside legal representation for the purpose of investing a potential criminal matter, what obligations would the administration have to cooperate with this person? I mean, other than providing documents that are under the open meeting law, what other requirements would they have to participate in any type of investigation? Where would it be the same as an investigation because we're a public entity and a public body? You know, are they required to participate in this investigation that's been initiated by us? Where we're the legislative body?
I mean, are they required? I don't see why anyone would obstruct an investigation by any means. Employees are always cooperative, in
Like,
my opinion.
you know, say the council hired an attorney to go and investigate, and the attorney wanted to talk to somebody, and the person in City Hall said, I'm not talking to you. No, you have to. No, I don't. I'm not talking to you. And they're not compelled, are they compelled to participate in any way, shape, or form?
Not compelled per se, although it would presumably be noted within the report that is provided by the investigation.
Council Bears.
A few more questions. Do you believe we could convene in an executive session tonight under Purpose 5 of the OML exemptions for executive session?
No, Purpose 5 is to investigate charges of criminal misconduct or the filing of a criminal complaint.
So it
Neither has
has-
occurred here.
It would have to have been filed. There would have to be a charge on file.
Correct.
All right. Are you aware of how the current independent investigation is being funded? What line item is being used to pay for the existing third-party investigation?
No, it just happened today.
Okay. Do you know when that might begin?
I would hope by this evening.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, to me, I would move that, or I would, if Councilor Marx's motion is to enter executive session in 48 hours on Friday evening, I could support that as long as it's duly noticed. I also think we should move tonight to say that we support a third-party independent investigation into the charges and that we requested appropriation for an outside legal counsel. I think if we take those three actions tonight, we're making a clear step forward within the constraints that we are under by the open meeting law and general statute and the predicament of, you know, the city solicitor is part of the administration, which I think is a constraint on our ability to act as well. So that would be my suggestion as moving forward. I would also suggest that we move forward with tonight and tomorrow's budget meetings to stay on track with that.
Council Marks, you have a motion on the floor.
I do, Mr. President. Just a question. Kim, when you mentioned about giving ample notice to the parties involved, who does that include?
The individuals to be discussed and counsel, if they so choose.
So who would that be in this case, the individuals discussed?
Unfortunately, I can't name names without violating individual rights, which is,
So we don't even know who we're talking about then? I mean, no,
I'm
really.
sure you know who
We're in a
you're talking
meeting where
about.
we
I
can't
just-
discuss names, we can't discuss anything. So if the parties wanted to waive their rights, they have the ability to do so, correct?
correct.
And would it be parties that brought the claim, or would it be parties where
All individuals to be discussed.
all individuals? So you couldn't have certain members waive their rights. For instance, if the two department heads said, I want to waive my rights, and the council has the ability to speak whatever you want to speak, that wouldn't be enough for the open meeting. It would still be a violation of the open meeting because the city administration didn't waive their rights. Do you know what I'm saying? There's two sides. One side saying we waive our rights. We have to get the other side naturally to waive their rights, correct?
No, I'm not following that. If one party were to, waive their rights, so to speak, which essentially whatever that means is they could opt to have it in open session completely. Is that what you're saying? If someone else were to waive their rights, but another individual chose not to?
Right,
Or
because there's multiple parties here, correct?
there's multiple individuals.
There's multiple
that could
individuals.
potentially be discussed.
Right. So if some of them waived their rights and said, we have no problem with the council bringing this up, we don't want to be present, we have no problem with them discussing this, that doesn't suffice because we need everyone to waive their rights.
Honestly, I've never been presented with that question before. I'd have to look more on it. I'm not sure that's ever happened.
Okay, okay, Mr. Proud, I'm fine moving forward with the exec on Friday and the amendments that Councilor Beers put forward. I'm fine with that, Mr.
So
President.
you want to make, Council Morel?
I just have, it's a question similar, Councilor Marks, maybe it's a little more. If parties are unable or unwilling to attend on Friday, but they were noticed and invited, are we still able to discuss them or no?
No, not if they're not, unless they were to waive their right or to say, please carry on. If they're not able to attend, I mean, that's separate and apart from, stating that, carry on with the meeting.
So there's like a potential that
We've lost for 10 years.
we could invite we could invite all these people and we can't get them to come. So we can't discuss it anyways.
Well, I would advise you not to discuss the individuals that aren't able to attend.
But we could discuss the ones that are able to attend. I know this is getting, we're just talking a numbers game at this point. I know it's getting, we're wavering into that hypothetical, but because we're talking a number of parties, I just want to understand, if, similar to what Councilor Marks was saying, if some of them cannot attend, but some can, are we able to discuss those who are in attendance, or can we not discuss anything?
I wouldn't recommend it, no.
Okay, so there is a likelihood that we put out this notice, we invite these people, and we still can't have the meeting.
Well, point of information, Mr. President, isn't the open meeting law, the requirements also around notice and notice only? We need to notify you that we're talking about you.
Yeah.
If you want to come. If you don't. If you can't be there, you're not there. But I don't see why we'd be beholden to their schedule. We're saying, we're giving you the 48 hours notices provided in the law. The law says we have to give you the notice. That's all we have to do is give you the notice. If you want to come. If you don't. Reach out if you can't make it and tell us you want to reschedule, but
Bless
you
Bless
can't,
you.
I don't think you can just ignore it
Bless
and just wait for it to go away. I don't think that's an option.
Is the representation about open meeting law or something else, though?
Well, I mean, the open meeting law is really about notice, right? That's
Right.
really what it surrounds, is it's about, what needs to be posted and.
Notice within 48 hours.
I get that, but is there another legal statute regarding representation that we're wading into? Or this is purely open meeting law we're talking about?
This is all open meeting law that I've been discussing. These
Okay,
are all
then
the
I think
rights
what
within the open meeting
Vice
law
President
within
Knight
executive
is saying
session.
makes sense.
I mean,
That's not what Kim said.
Right, but I mean, I think.
That's what you said, but that's not what Kim said.
What?
He's saying as long as we notice people, it doesn't matter if they show up or not, as long as we notice them.
Well, I mean, you have to give proper notice. They can opt not to attend, sure. I think the question was.
Right,
could
but then
still
you said we
continue to
can't
talk about
discuss
an
them.
Individual if they're not, within that meeting. I would just err on the side of caution. That's all I'm saying, counsel. We're talking about individual rights.
Absolutely, but I'm just trying to figure out if we can't discuss them, then why are we having the meeting? Right? I mean,
Right, that's a valid question.
I mean, I don't even know how we'd be able to identify who gets, so who do we, how can we right now determine who even gets notified to come to the thing?
you
in
can't,
48
I
hours?
can't speak about that.
If we can't name names, how's that work?
I don't know. We need a lawyer.
We have one, I mean.
Yes, apparently not me.
No, we have one.
No, it's not upon you, Kim. We need someone to give us guidance. And I don't
So.
know if it could be the same person.
I'd like to offer a motion then that when the clerk does provide notification of the meeting, that I notifies everybody who's mentioned by name in the documents.
Council Bears.
I mean, I think we are getting guidance, to be quite frank. I understand it's not the guidance I think any of us want to hear, but it is the guidance we're getting. I guess my question would just be, if we were to discuss individuals on a properly noticed meeting who did not attend, would there be an outcome other than having an open meeting law complaint filed against this council? Could the council be subject to litigation other
Be
than?
fined
We could be fined
by
through
the
the open
Division
meeting,
of Open Government.
right, through the open meeting law,
Correct.
right, but so there could be an open meeting law complaint filed, we could be fined. Could other litigation be filed other than that?
Potentially.
Potentially, okay, yeah, that's kind of the answer I thought you'd give, it's just an open question, right?
It is.
People can pretty much sue over anything. Thank you.
So, Council Marks, you have a motion on the floor. You want it?
The motion that I put forward was to meet in exec on Friday at 6:30,
With-
I believe, depending on the time now.
Yeah, with the amendments made by Councilor
With
Bears.
the amendments made by council, the three amendments, I believe he put forth.
I'd also like to further add an amendment, Mr. President, with addition to legal counsel. Outside financial audit might be appropriate as well, whether or not there's a public account of some sort that we could also take a look at related to the finance aspect of the complaint.
Okay, so you have Councilor Knights and Councilor Bears, you want to repeat yours?
Outside financial audit?
Yeah, Councilor Bears, you want to repeat your amendments to the clerk, please?
Yeah, my amendments, I think it's two. It was that we support an outside third-party investigation into the legal and personnel matters received by the council. And,
Hang on.
yeah,
Okay.
and that we request that the mayor appropriate funds to the council for an outside legal counsel. Counsel with an I, counsel with an E, respectively. My third suggestion was just that we continue forward with budget meetings, which I don't think needs to be a part of this.
Councilor Marks, you comfortable with that?
I'm comfortable.
So on the motion by Councilor Marks is amended by Councilor Bears and amended by Councilor Knight. Seconded by? Seconded by Councilor Falco. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Bears.
Yes.
Council Falco.
Yes.
Vice President Knight.
Yes.
Council Marks.
Yes.
Council Morale.
Yes.
Council Scarpelli.
Yes.
President Carviallo.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, motion passes. Councilor Marks.
Here and on Zoom, Mr. President.
Who would like to speak? Good evening. Mike, name and address of the record, please.
Evening, councilors. Mike Durham, Director of Veteran Services, 85 George B. Hassett Drive, room 100. Just been advised by my attorney to let you know that we are totally fine with you proceeding in an open forum. I believe Alicia is on the Zoom call right now to confirm that as well, and our attorney's en route, so you can speak to him directly. Do you have any questions for me?
Questions for Mike?
But just to let you know that we're going to be convening in 48 hours' time to discuss the matter in executive session. We're going to be notifying you and your counsel as well as other individuals mentioned in the complaint as to the time and date of the meeting, and we hope to see you there.
Council Bears?
And I'd just like to add, without getting into specifics, that I think we all take the documents that we receive very seriously. And personally, I would just thank both of you for your work for the city. I don't think I can say more than that right now, but we take this seriously.
Thank you. Any further questions? Alicia, did you want to speak? Mr. Clerk, could you please unmute Alicia Nunley, please? She's up on the top. Nice. She's on her iPhone. It says, I see her picture up here.
Good afternoon, councilors. I echo what Michael said, and I heard what was said in the council, and I did receive the email for the open meeting law notice that went to everyone along with the posting that the clerk did. So we are aware and we do waive.
Okay. Thank you, Alicia. So we're going to reschedule this for Friday, correct? To protect all parties?
Yes, Mr.
Okay,
President.
so Alicia, the clerk is gonna go downstairs and do a filing for Friday.
Mr. President, just to clarify, if we could, even if we wanted to discuss this in an open meeting, I think the city solicitor said all parties had to agree. Is that correct? Okay, so even though some of the parties are waiving their rights, Mr. President, I believe all parties have to be notified
That's
with
correct.
48-hour notice. So that's going to preclude us from discussing this at a public session.
Thank you. Sure, Mr. Clerk.
Can I ask the city solicitor for some help in making sure that I provide this notification in the proper way? Because I want to make sure that rights are protected here. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Mike.
I just wanted to say that there was enough time to hire an independent investigator and have outside consultations, but I guess not enough time to appear before this body tonight. I understand your decision, but I want you to know I'm happy to have this out in the open, and everything looks better in the light.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So, Mr. Clerk, I know you're behind the gun right now. Get this done.
Can I ask one last question?
Council Falco.
It's actually to the city solicitor.
It's 6 o'clock, maybe a late start.
So if I may, I believe you mentioned that there was an attorney already hired to spearhead an investigation. So with that attorney that was hired, how do we know that there aren't any conflicts in the hiring, I guess? Okay, so you did the due diligence to just go through the process and make sure that they had no conflicts with regard to what they were going to be investigating and who they were going to be investigating.
Mr.
Right.
President, and as I stated, we don't know the scope of the investigation either.
Right.
Right, so we know there's an investigation, we don't know to what extent. And I think that should be something that, we're made aware of, Mr. President.
Mr. President,
Council Bears.
would it be possible for this council to receive a documentation of the scope of the third-party investigation or whatever agreement has been entered into with the investigator? No, I gotcha.
If I may, Council Bears, could you? Council Bears, if you could please repeat that question. I didn't quite hear it.
It was, is it possible that the council could receive a copy of the scope provided or requested of the third-party investigator, or a copy of any legal agreement, memorandum of understanding, whatever the document might be, contract between the city and the third-party investigator?
What was the solicitor's response?
We don't-
Wait.
I think it's, I'm not sure it would state, I'm not sure I would have anything in writing at this particular time that would state the scope. It was more of a verbal conversation. What I could provide is a letter of retainer, I suppose, but it wouldn't specify your particular question
Well, Council,
and
Bears'
the
question.
document.
The independent council is obviously been charged with some duties or scope, so there has to be something.
And the same has been true, Mr. President, with other investigations
So
done
then,
in the community.
an attorney wasn't hired just to do nothing, so they've been charged with some scope.
I mean, I would
Right,
respectfully,
the scope would be to conduct an independent investigation based upon the information that I have provided.
I guess I would just respectfully request any written agreements entered into between the city and the investigator, either that have already been entered into or that will be entered into, be provided to the council, a copy be provided to the council, and then I'd make that in the form of a motion.
On the motion by Council Bears. Second by Council Morel. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. All right, okay, Mr. Clerk, motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, Mr. President.
The motion by Council Marks to adjourn, seconded by Council Bears, all in favor? All opposed, motion passes. Those in the audience, the clerk is gonna need a few minutes to get some stuff done, so we're probably gonna be delayed about 30 minutes, okay?